Hello there, my name is Darren Chern. I am a lead tutor here at UNT's Learning Center. Today I am going to be covering the important concepts of the preterite and imperfect tenses. Let's begin. The first tense learned in Spanish is the present. The present tense, like it sounds, covers actions that happen in the present such as I talk, you walk, he runs, we dance, and they sleep. As you know, we use a large variety of tenses in English, and the same thing occurs in Spanish. Today, we will be discussing some past tenses and their uses. First, we will cover the preterite tense. The preterite tense is a commonly used tense that describes actions that happened in the past. To get in the mindset, here are some examples of English sentences. I walked to school, I ate my lunch, we danced, and they called. Just as we did for regular present tense verbs, we are going to cover each ending separately, starting with AR verbs. The endings for AR verbs in the preterite tense are hace, o, amos, and harán. These endings are added to the end of regular verbs the same way they would be done in the present tense. If we take hablar, we would drop the AR, then for the yo form add an accented e, to form hable. Tu, haste, to form hablaste. Él, usted, o, to form hablo. Nosotros add amos to form hablamos, and ellos, ellas, ustedes harán to form hablarán. Here are some example sentences with AR verbs and the preterite. Hablé con mi madre, nadaron en la piscina. The endings in the preterite for IR and ER are exactly the same. The endings for ER and IR look somewhat similar to the endings for AR as well, except there are some small differences. The endings are I, iste, yo, imos, and hieron. If we look at the example of escribir, which means to write, we get escribí, escribiste, escribió, escribimos, and escribieron. Stem changers in the preterite work differently than in the present tense. In the present tense, any stem changing verb was altered in all forms except for the nosotros. In the preterite tense, there are no stems changed for AR and ER verbs. If we remember our common categories of stem changers, we have O to UE, E to IE, and E to I. In the preterite, O to UE will only change from O to U, and E to IE will only change from E to I. For IR verbs, the stem is changed only in the él, ella, usted form and the ellos, ellas, ustedes form. Let's look at some examples. Dormir is dormí, dormiste, durmió, dormimos, and durmieron. Preferir is preferí, preferiste, prefirió, preferimos, and prefirieron. In the preterite, there are some examples that change more than just the vowel in the middle. The first category we will talk about are U changers. Let's look at tener. If tener were a regular ER verb, we would simply get ten plus all of the endings. But tener is yet again an irregular. The stem changes to tu, then we get the following endings: iste, o, imos, and hieron. Another category of stem changers is the I group. There are two main examples of this, which are hacer and querer. For these verbs, we get the new stems of is and quis. These verbs will have the same exact endings as the U group. The last group of irregular stem changers is J. Let's look at the verb decir. This verb changes to dich with all of the same endings as the previous two categories, except the ellos, ellas, ustedes form is now eron instead of hieron. Let's look at each of these verbs side by side with some examples. Our first example comes from the U group and is tener. Tener is conjugated in the preterite as tuve, tuviste, tuvo, tuvimos, and tuvieron. Our next example is querer, which falls under the I group. Remember, the I group and the U group have the same exact endings. This creates the conjugations of quise, quisiste, quiso, quisimos, and quisieron. Our last example is decir. As part of the J group, the ellos, ellas, ustedes form drops the I. We get the conjugations of dije, dijiste, dijo, dijimos, and dijeron. In the preterite tense, we now have an accented e or e at the end of the yo form AR verbs. In order to keep the correct sound of the consonants in the certain verbs, the yo form is altered. There are three types of regular AR verbs. They are verbs that end in car, gar, and zar. An example of a car verb is tocar. In order to keep the hard k sound, the endings change from c to que. Only in the yo form we have a changer that is toque. The rest will be regularly conjugated using the preterite AR endings. An example of a gar is pagar. In order to keep the g sound, the ending in the yo form forms pague. For zar, we can look at almorzar. The yo form of this verb is almorce. Yet again, the rest of the verb conjugations are conjugated regularly. Our last category of irregulars is what I like to call unaccented verbs. These are verbs that are separated into their own category because they are simply different. Our first two verbs that are actually conjugated the same way are ser and ir. Both of these verbs are conjugated the same way in the preterite despite having different meanings. The conjugations are fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, and fueron. Our other two verbs are conjugated as if they were IR verbs but do not have accents. Dar, despite having an AR ending, also ends as if it were an IR verb. It becomes di, diste, dio, dimos, and dieron. Ver conjugates to vi, viste, vio, vimos, and vieron. Now we are going to go over the imperfect. Without going too in-depth on when we use the imperfect, the basic idea is that it is used for past tense things that were continuous or reoccurring. Let's look at the conjugations. Similar to the preterite, the verbs ending in ER and IR are conjugated the same way. For AR verbs, we use the following endings: yo, aba, tú, abas, usted, aba, nosotros, habamos, and ellos, ellas, ustedes, haban. It is important to note that there is now an accent in the nosotros form. Now let's move to the ER/IR conjugations. Now we have yo, ella, tú, ellas, usted, ella, nosotros, íamos, and ellos, ellas, ustedes, ian. All of these forms have accents on the I, but share the same vowel sound of A at the end as the AR verbs. Fortunately, there are no stem changers in the imperfect. In fact, there are only three main irregulars: ser, ir, and ver. The conjugations for ser are era, eras, era, éramos, and eran. The conjugations for ir are iba, ibas, iba, ibamos, and iban. And the conjugations for ver are veía, veías, veía, veíamos, and veían. Now, to talk about the similarities and differences between preterite and imperfect. Both of these tenses are used to describe past events, but they are each used in specific situations. The preterite tense is used to describe past completed actions. Generally, this means shorter events. An example of this is, I played in a baseball game. This would translate to, jugué en un partido de béisbol. This sentence uses the preterite because the game had a beginning and an end in the past. The imperfect is used to describe past, continuous, or habitual actions. If I said, I played baseball when I was a kid, I would translate this to jugaba béisbol cuando era niño. Let's look at this timeline. If we were going to look at the preterite would look like points such as broke arm, which is a singular completed action in the past. If we were going to look at the imperfect, was a girl would be a good example because it was something that continued for a long time in the past. Now, with all of the important information you have heard today, here's a short review of important things we covered. The preterite is used to describe past completed actions. The regular endings for AR verbs are aste, o, amos, and aran. In ER and IR verbs in the same way with iste, io, imos, and ieron. We have 4 main groups of regular verbs in the preterite as well. We have our old/vowel stem changers that now only affect IR verbs with O to UE or E to IE and only occur in third person singular and plural forms. We have our new stem changers that are separated into the U group, I group, and the J group. We have our car, gar, and zar, which are AR verbs that change in the yo form only. And we have our unaccented irregulars, which are sed/ir, dad, and ver. The imperfect is used to describe past continuous or habitual actions. The AR endings are aba, abas, abba, abamos, and aban. Both the ER and IR endings are ia, ias, ia, iamos, and ian. Our irregulars in the imperfect are sed, ir, and ver. And lastly, the main thing to remember is that the preterite is used to describe more exact moments in the past, and the imperfect describes something that was continuous for a longer period of time. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helped you get a better idea of the key concepts of preterite and imperfect. Feel free to check out some of our other resources here at the Learning Center located in Sage Hall, room 170.